Hello, everybody. We're alive. I promise you. It's not a drill. You know, just this is actually real. This isn't a recording. You know, this is actually a live episode of the Sprint.
That is happening.
That's right.
Definitely happening this time.
So welcome, everybody, to the Sprint. For those who are not familiar, this is a speedrunning talk show. We host it every other week, normally. We talk news, discussions, and we also do a run analysis every show. So we'll get into the run analysis, of course, a little bit later. But first, I'll kind of introduce our co-host. So I am Darkman78, and we have to my left, we have JHobz.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? This episode brought to you by Clear Skies.
And then we have to my bottom left, we have Frozen. Frozen, what's up?
How's it going? There's no hail, so that's a positive for me. As far as getting a new one. So
yeah, for those who missed it, last week we canceled the show due to Frozen unfortunately being caught in the middle of a hailstorm. So that was a little bit dicey, but you know what? He's alive. We're alive. We're here. Let's do a show.
Sounds great.
Let's do that.
All right, so we're gonna, of course, get into our news of the week. So kicking things off, it's been a while, so why not kick it off with the Summer Games Done Quick schedule and games list coming out? So, our marathon's gonna be taking place at June 23rd, and we have released the schedule. So there's a lot of great games there, some interesting things. So I don't know. We'll start off with either of you, Hobbs or Frozen. Do you guys have any thoughts on the schedule? Anything you're looking forward to? I know Hobbs might have some vested interest in it.
Just a bit.
Sure, yeah. I mean, this is like news of the month, by the way, folks. Like, we know the schedule's been out for a little bit, but yeah. So I got to run in. Woo! Cool. I'll make the joke now. Thanks, Darkman. Like, for sure, it was a whole committee thing, but like, I'm gonna be running Crash 3 NST, Insane Trilogy, which is gonna be a 3-way race with 2 other runners. There actually aren't a ton of like more than 2-way HD races in in GDQ, so like that, I'm actually really excited about that aspect of it too. And it's the top 3 in the world, and one of them is actually coming from Finland, I want to say. I know it's over in Europe. I'm sorry, Marquez, if I got that wrong. But it's, I'm super excited for it. That's going to be a blast. And there are a lot of other good runs as well that we can jump into. But that's the first one, obviously, on my mind for obvious reasons.
Frozen, anything that kind of you see you loving?
My top run is Kirby Air Ride. I love that run in general, and I've seen individual people running it, but having a race between Parastrike and One David J, that's gonna be, I love that. They're 2 good friends of mine, and it's always fun watching it. I mean, I've never seen a race of it, so it's got to be hype.
That's fair enough. One of my personal favorites, a little bit of a underdog, I guess, if you will. It's kicking off the silly block, which I think we can kind of get into it a little bit, which is Dive Kick. So Dive Kick story mode, all levels race. On the damn tough difficulty.
That name alone, dude. Like when you have a category name like 10 times the length of your title, you know it's going to be great.
Yeah. So 2 notable people in the Smash community, Raging Cherry and Esam, are going to be racing off against each other. So that's just going to be a very goofy race. Like, the game itself is pretty hilarious. It's an interesting speed run, definitely, but just the 2 of them are like jokesters, so it's gonna be a big old laugh, and it's gonna be fun watching. I'll probably end up being on the couch or something like that, as a notable Dive Kick who's completed 1 run in his entire life. Nice.
I could throw another one at you guys. Sonic Generations is back in, which is cool. I think it's been 2 years maybe since it happened, being run by Frogknock before. This is the Blue Mania who's going to be running it, who actually just got a run last time and is a Korean runner. So going to be making the trip out to the US again, which I think is really cool. I always think it's great when we have like foreign runners, especially from outside of Europe too, because it's just a little bit easier for Europeans to come out here. So I just think that's always cool. It's so much, that's like dedication to the craft of like an ultimate degree to be able to fly all the way across the world to come out and do this. And Blue Mini is a great dude and a great runner, so yeah, I'm excited for that one.
Yeah, definitely. Another one, and I have to mention it because I featured it on the freezer, The Hobbit.
It got in.
That's right.
And I'm very happy about that. In general, I think it's a really cool run. I wouldn't say that it's underran or anything, but I think that it's not a very well-known game. And if you haven't seen the game, it's a delightful mess of glitches and just really cool movement tech.
Yeah.
All right, I'm just going to go ahead and continue with the silly block. So the silly block is kind of something a little bit newish to SGDQ. So everybody, of course, by this point knows the awful block for AGDQ. You get the worst of the worst, pretty much. You put it all there and let all the laughs come. So now we're doing them for the second year in a row. We're doing the silly block. So as you can imagine, a bunch of silly games for whatever reason. Not necessarily bad games, not necessarily good games. They're just kind of silly. So one game that's in there is quite a wild ride. It's called Hylix. And there's really no words that I can put to this game that will truly help you appreciate or understand what it is. Honestly, even if you watch it, you still may not truly understand what you're watching. It's just one of those games where you need to watch it and then reflect upon what just happened.
I immediately, I know nothing about the game, and I already am just like, okay, that name is way too suspiciously close to Hydlide. I'm going to watch it. I'm going to tune in.
Silly games and awful games are just some of the best blocks out there. Again, it really speaks to the whole, it even goes back to the whole freezer thing, just games that people don't know about and are their own gems. There's so many of them out there.
Yeah, because a game can be a terrible casual game and a fantastic speedrun, which is just like a really cool, it's a way to breathe life into games that otherwise have no reason to have life breath.
And sometimes they're bad for both, but I mean, they're still entertaining.
Right, that is true. Titanic was in the marathon once. I could throw a twofer at you guys. On Wednesday night, Dead Rising is happening, which is really cool to me because previously Dead Rising kind of had this like time limit built into the game, so you couldn't go faster than a certain speed, as far as I understand anyways.
Yes.
And with this mode or some new glitch or trick, I don't know what it was, they got around that. Like there's an actual speed run to it now, which I think is super cool, and I'm excited to see what it looks like. There are a lot of games that sometimes I like hear about and see that they get on the games list or schedule, and then I end up not watching them until the GDQ run, because I just like I love just having that surprise of, okay, let me go watch this thing with all the commentary and everything for the first time. And right after that is Remnants of Nazith. I got to shout out my boy Epicat, known lovingly to the Ori community as Bob, even though his name is Brian.
All right.
But, yep. And Remnants of Nazith is a great game. It's one of those like IL games where you're trying to save a tenth of a second in various spots and stuff. And Bob's put a lot of time into it, so it should be a fun watch on a Wednesday evening.
Nice.
Yep. Go ahead.
One of the ones that I'm looking forward to is Octopath Traveler. It's a fantastic RPG, great game. And they're doing a bid war for what story they'll be doing. Should be pretty interesting, and they're all really good runs. And honestly, each one has its own right to be in GDQ. So I'm pretty stoked for that, and I think it's at a good time. It's at 12:30. I forgot on what day, Friday.
Yeah.
And that's like a perfect GDQ wake up time for the person who has nothing to do at GDQs. Not for you guys, but perfect GDQ wake up time where I can wake up and watch a nice, comfy RPG. Perfect.
You know what? I'm just going to go ahead. I'm not even going to highlight a single game in this instance because I'm just going to say the entirety of Thursday.
Yeah, Thursday's a pretty good day.
You just look at the Thursday schedule. Honestly, I'll just start off with a very underrated game that nobody knows about, and it's called Jumper: Griffin's Story.
I'm tempted to go run and grab my copy of that. I have it.
Same.
This is a licensed game. So, licensed games can be very, very charming, I guess, for lack of a better word. I'm going to go grab his game. But Jumper: Griffin's Story, the speedrun, is actually a very busted game. It's just a fantastic watch. It literally, within 5 seconds, you see somebody clip through a wall. It's just amazing.
That's wonderful.
Yeah, it's a 22-minute speedrun, so just watch it. I can't believe he actually got his copy. Story. There you go. Yeah,
And
so
of course, you can't see anything because the lights are too bright. But
Yeah.
Jumper, Griffin's story. This game's terrible, by the way.
hey, the speedrun's good.
Right, but the game is terrible.
That's fine. Yeah, from that to like, there's some cool co-op runs, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers and Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Turtles in Time, leading into a Sonic block in the morning, then leading straight into Cave Story, which is always cool, right into Fire Emblem, which people always love Fire Emblem, right into Kingdom Hearts 3, which I know Hobbs might kind of like.
Yeah, that was going to be my next one to talk about.
Right into Invictus, which is a really cool Super Mario World hack. Right into, oh, sorry, I missed Banjo-Kazooie, excuse me.
Oh, who cares?
Banjo-Kazooie race that some people don't care about.
Small little game.
And then from Invictus on is basically an entire Mario block, which is stacked as hell. So yeah, that's Thursday. So I don't even know when people are going to take a bathroom break. Because
capping it off with SMG2 also, like Super Mario Galaxy 2, which is just a great run that doesn't get in very often because it's very long. But yeah, I would definitely wanted to dive a little bit into Kingdom Hearts 3 because some of you may have caught that we did a GDQ hotfix of Kingdom Hearts 3 a few weeks back, a couple months back now at this point, I think. Super like cool speed game and stuff, and obviously brand new, so there's still a lot of changes happening to it. One of the other things that's really interesting is that right around the time when this show ends, so if you are watching this on YouTube later, like it's already out, there's going to be a patch to the game that has like critical mode and new game plus. But the interesting thing in the context of like the run that's happening is that part of the patch notes say some enemy behavior changes and various game fixes or something, which various game fixes is like the worst line that a speedrunner can ever hear in a patch notes, because you don't know. Like you'd rather at least they say we patched out this glitch you use than like not know until the day of.
Right.
But also enemy behavior changes is in Kingdom Hearts and like action RPGs in general, a lot of your run is often built around the way the enemy behaves. Like it's around manipulating enemy AI or dealing with enemy AI in like a proper way. So it like that's something that has, it could be nothing. Like the patch could, we don't know yet. It'll be out around when this show ends. But it also could be like everything. Like it could totally change some fights to a drastic amount. And I just think that's really cool because it helps to breathe life into a game. I mean, this game doesn't even really need it yet because it's still so fresh. But like a few of the runners that are going to be running at GDQ have jumped to other categories so they don't burn out before before Games and Quick hits. And I think this will be potentially, you know, if things change, a cool way to like breathe life into it. And there aren't like too many glitches or anything, or you know, exploits used in the run right now, so we're not too worried about the various game fixes thing. There's like one trick that could potentially be patched, and it's just kind of a cool thing. It wouldn't be that big a deal if it happened, so we're not too worried about that part. I'm really interested to see what happens. It basically is all it comes down to.
Yeah. And then, of course, I will be remiss if I don't mention that Mega Man 11 is in a GDQ for the first time. So as it stands right now, that is going to be a race between Fast.cc and QTT6. So Fast is the current world record holder. Interestingly enough, when we were going through submissions, QTT was the world record holder, and then Fast, he took it from him. So that should be a really good race. I mean, Fast has been pushing this game a lot recently. But, you know, assuming QTT is going to be able to make it, he's going to come back to the game and he's going to be able to push it himself. So I think the race between those two is going to be really good.
Fast just got the first 32 in Mega Man 11, which is really awesome. Been loving those streams. So,
yep. So I don't know, any final thoughts, guys, about the schedule other than it looks cool?
I'm excited to see how it plays out. Lots of. I only just occurred to me how much Super Mario World there is in there. And I love that. I think that it's a really cool game and has a lot of awesome mechanics. You won't even know that some of the games are actually Super Mario World, like Grand Poo World and Invictus. It's barely even SMW at that point.
Yeah, that's the thing. We dove into the mechanics of that game last episode and how there's so many like interesting ways that things, you know, interact with each other. So when you have people that are making levels specifically around that, it's really cool. The only other thing I was going to really shout out was the on Saturday evening is also stacked, and there's Pokemon Let's Go is one of those games where it's actually an interesting speedrun for different reasons than you normally think, which I think is really cool. And the Link to the Past and Super Metroid combo rando is that's just a weird idea. Like, why does that exist? And it's so cool. So it's that, I mean, it earned its spot as the penultimate run. Let me just put it that way.
Right.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, so that is the SGDQ schedule. If you want to check it out for yourself, you can go to gamesdonequick.com/schedule. So yeah, we'll move on. Interesting topic that I think is really cool. Something that's been happening. It's been in the works for a while, and now we can say it's finally released. Speedreading Science, which is a book about speedrunning that was made by OmniGamer. So that is finally out. It's a really interesting concept to talk about speedrunning in book form. It talks about like various different things, like the kind of the history of speedrunning, aspects of speedrunning and how to kind of get into it. So yeah, guys, I don't know. What do you think about a book about speedrunning coming out?
If it were most other people, I'd be super dubious, but it's OmniGamer. OmniGamer is, for those of you who don't know him, he's well known in the community for all of these intricate projects. He's talked at one of Google's things. I don't even know what they do, really.
Yeah.
It's a Google talk about speedrunning. He's known for doing mash tactics, where he actually brought different controllers and had people try mashing and compete at GDQs to have that. I mean, he has all of these. He's a very storied person in speedrunning. And if it were anybody else, I probably wouldn't be as interested. But just from what I have seen about it, I'm super excited. I think that it'll be a very interesting look at a broader view of speedrunning than we get on a daily basis.
That's true. And there's two things I really love about this being in book form. Because like you said, it's kind of weird, right? Like you never think of speedrunning as having anything to do with books. But I think that there are two big things that like doing it as a book leverages as an advantage. The first is that you can have fantastic art all over the entire thing, which is done by Carrie Fry, I believe, if not all of it, most of it. Which Carrie Fry has done tons of stuff for GDQs and for RPG Limit Break, other events, and like it's just really cool to see all of her art everywhere. And the other thing is that you can go so much more in depth in a book because the people who are buying it are buying into that. Like they want you to go in depth. So like you can go in depth in, say a Reddit post or a wiki page or something like that. But you're not going to capture as many people's attention, at least not everybody that stumbles across the link or whatever. People that are stumbling across the book they're reading it, they're buying it, they want that. They specifically want it. So I think it's really cool. I think that's probably part of the reason why it's called Speedrunning Science, is that Omni goes deep into the science of speedrunning, how not just a brief overview of like, oh, here's how the process works. You got to learn about the game and then route it and all that stuff. Like he goes deep into all of these different aspects of speedrunning. It's been something he's been working on for years. So I think those are just kind of like the two things that you really can get out of a book that you not necessarily can't get anywhere else, but are a lot harder to get everywhere else, or a lot like harder to keep people's attention.
Yeah, just talking about like OmniGamer in general, like he's just the person that he obviously has an engineering background, and like part of figuring things out is like part of his like life, right? But he kind of like he's always been the type of person to apply those like concepts into like anything related to speedrunning. And I imagine the book is going to be no different. I haven't had a chance to get it yet, but I imagine it's going to be a very like deep dive into things and kind of like figuring out like from like a very like granular position, like how to like how to speedrun or just like other things like the history of speedrunning.
Yep. I actually remembered to order it when we talked about it the other day. We were going through doing an overview of the show. I was like, oh, right, I wanted to order that book. So I actually ordered it. It's coming later this week. But even just from what I've seen, he has a free preview on his page, the Fangamer page that he has. And even within that, he goes in depth into things that people ask on a regular basis, just in like Twitch chats, just talking about like, how do I get into speedrunning? The super basics. Why do you want to get? Then he asks questions of you saying, hey, what why do you want to get into speedrunning? Is it for these reasons? If so, then this. And it goes more in depth than I think most people will look for, but the people who are looking for it will find, as you're saying, JHobz, this is the right format for what I think he would want to do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah. So, so Speedreading Science, if you are interested in reading it yourself, you can go to fangamer.com and search Speedrunning Science, and you will find a link to the book to buy. So moving on, we are going to check out our next news topic, which is the release of Auto Splitter. So a member of the speedrunning community named Tofel has released an image-based Auto Splitter. So what exactly is an Auto Splitter, you may ask? So obviously, as many people know, there are split programs where you can, you can stop your timer. You have a timer running, and then you can briefly capture a moment in which, you complete some objective in your run. And you want to know, okay, so I've defeated this boss. I want to know like how I've done. So you click your button, you hit a split, and now you got a basis for which how have I done on this particular part of the run. So with an auto splitter, in previous iterations, with split programs is you would of course have to press it yourself, and that would lead to some inconsistencies. You may like forget to split sometimes. That's a common mistake that all of us make. Yep. Or it's just maybe your split was a little bit late or a little bit early, so now the timing is a little bit off. Like, was that split good or not? I don't know, because my split was off by a little bit. So with the release of this image-based auto splitter, that will allow the program to just split for you. Conceptually, it will split for you, and now you don't have to worry about that. You get more consistent timings for all of your splits, so now you have a better basis for comparison. So yeah, this is a new thing. It was released, I believe, a couple weeks ago. So I don't know, guys. What are your thoughts? Auto splitter has been a topic of conversation for a long time in the speedrunning community.
To also add a little bit to other auto splitters. So previous iterations of auto splitters, they're usually file based. So like PC games have been well known for having a number of the main target that has auto splitters. And basically, they'll be looking for a write to a file or a file appearing, certain triggers that can be looked at programmatically in order to trigger the split. Mm-hmm. This is a much easier, more straightforward way of doing it, and something that extends towards consoles, which is extremely exciting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so there's a few things I'm excited about for this, and there's also a couple advantages that an auto splitter gives other than just convenience that I think are important to mention. Because the main thing that immediately comes to mind with auto splitters is, I don't need to remember to split ever. I can just do it. I can have as many splits as I want. But the nice advantages you get from auto splitters are you generally get more consistent splits across your community. Mm-hmm. So, and by that I mean, like, normally when you're doing splits are like a lap timer. And if you think about it as a lap timer, you might have some people who the laps that they're running are a quarter mile, and you might have some people where the laps they're running are a half mile or whatever. So your actual just times comparing are not going to be very easy to compare. You're going to have to do some math, figure stuff out. But when an auto splitter comes around, a lot of people in communities tend to just use the same splits, because they go, okay, what do I need to get this run going? Oh, here's the auto splitter, and here's the splits everybody uses. Like, that tends to be what happens a lot of the time. And the other advantage you get with an auto splitter is you can have more accurate timing, not just in your full game like runs and your splits, because for the most part, like in the actual context of leaderboards, splits don't matter. It's just start the game at the right time, end the game at the right time, or end the timer, at the right time and all that. And the interesting thing is that when auto splitters can really help for getting good timing of strats, because if you have like, I need to get from point A to point B as fast as possible, and I think there are 3 different ways to do it. It can be, depending on how like long the distance is, or how free of a like chance you get to split at the beginning or end of it, it can be really easy to like be off in your timing. Even if you're off by a half a second, sometimes that's all the optimization you're trying to do. And if you have auto splitters, then you can actually be like, okay, the way this one works is by image detection. So what I'm going to do is actually take a picture of the spot on the screen where I want my timer to start. I'm going to take a picture of the spot in the game where I want my timer to end. And then whatever way I get from point A to point B, I know that timer is going to start and stop at the right time. So whatever result I get, and you still, you know, do it like 5 times or 10 times or 100 times to average out the differences. But you can know, like, okay, this is definitively the faster time. I have, you know, I didn't make any errors in my pressing of the split key. I didn't, you know, I don't have to go and download it and frame count. I can look at this and go, oh, hey, this is faster. And it just speeds up that process of routing, basically, of like determining what are the faster ways to do these things. And it often will like lead to crazy optimizations that other people wouldn't have bothered with, because the effort is kind of too high. Like we saw this in the Ori community. We've actually had an auto splitter for a while, but then on top of an auto splitter, we had a practice tool get made by Sigma Sign. And the practice tool is basically, it would let you create a start point in the game, an end point in the game, and it'll like let you effectively make a little mini time trial in the actual game. And that is like akin to go from an auto splitter to that is akin to going from without an auto splitter to having an auto splitter. So it was really neat to see people optimize, like, oh, I'm going to optimize this like 2-second stretch of land just to see what's the fastest way to move across like these few rocks, and saving tenths of a second. And then that, you know, compounds upon itself and it turns into multiple seconds over the entire course of the run, just kind of what speedrunning is all about. So I think auto splitters are great for actually like optimizing runs.
Absolutely. I think you said it all. I don't think that I have anything to really add to that.
I mean, like you said, the biggest thing is now consoles can get it. That's what's really cool. Is otherwise it had to be an older game that you could like, you know, make a ROM hack of to have practice tools or something, to have timing tools. And not only did it have to generally be an older game, like sometimes you could do it in your games, but not usually if they were on console. You also had to have a dedicated community that also happened to have the right skill set.
Yep. You have to have a Dots Are Cool from Super Mario World,
right, which
in order to make something.
Basically means you had to run Mario or Zelda. So like now, you know, now you can have an auto splitter for any game, and that's really cool. It's also one like centralized tool that is an open source repository that other people can contribute to continue to make it better, as opposed to like being scattered across different games. Like the Crash Bandicoot community has had an auto splitter for a while that is image based, but I'm excited for this general one to exist that people can constantly keep improving across all games.
Yep. All right. So yeah, that so if you do want to check out the auto splitter, just you'll have to look on Toful's Twitter, TOUFOOL, and you can check it out. And he probably has the message pin. It's got like a bunch of retweets anyway, so I'm sure you can find it by going on his Twitter.
Oh, and load removal. Last thing is like you can use an auto splitter in order to remove loads on console games, which are really huge in the newest generations, because it sucks to say like that somebody got world record because they had more money and bought an SSD.
So let's explain load removal for a second. Load removal is when you're timing, you're going to have the loads that you can take out. That will differ based on your setup, especially with a PC game or sometimes even newer consoles. They're just different. And so taking that out takes away what JHobz was just saying, the differences between being able to buy a fantastic processor or an SSD.
Right. Yeah, that way it puts it back on the skill of the runner rather than how much money they had.
All right then. I think we covered everything.
We covered that.
Anybody needs to know
one more.
All right, so moving on. So RPG Limit Break is coming up. So that is going to be from May 5th through 11th.
Woo!
So yeah, I guess JHobz might be slightly interested in that. But yeah, we've covered RPG Limit Break in the past few shows. But for those who are not aware, it is a speedrunning marathon that features pretty much exclusively RPGs. They are raising money for NAMI, which is a charity that deals with mental health and awareness. So that is awesome. So yeah, so it's going to be taking place in Utah, and of course May 5th through 11th. So yeah, I just want to kind of highlight that and just let people know that it's happening. And I know JHobz is a little bit vested in RPG Limit Break, right?
Yeah, so I'm on staff for RPG Limit Break. I made the website basically, so you can yell at me when it breaks inevitably during the marathon.
Noted.
But yeah, I'm sure I will at one point. But no, like I love RPG Limit Break. I've been watching it since the first one in 2015. Been participating in it since the next one, 2016, and it's RPGs are totally unlike most other speedruns, and it's really cool to celebrate that aspect. It's also kind of like a mini version, mini in terms of like not the length, but the context. There's the really long-a-thon that happened a couple times now, and it's like that's almost completely dominated by RPGs and just like super longer completion categories. Because a lot of times RPGs are longer speedruns, and that doesn't mean that they're worse, which I think is something that's really cool to highlight. Also, NAMI is the National Alliance on Mental Illness and is a fantastic cause, like Darkman was saying, and that means a lot to me. So yeah, consider donating and or just watching and sharing and stuff.
It's one of those things where the entire week I'm going to have it on the background, maybe even while we're doing the show, but don't tell Darkman that.
No, you guys gotta have it just up in my corner, like that episode.
But yeah, super looking forward to RPG Limit Break. It's always a fun time. It's a very like comfy marathon, right? It's just like you kind of sit back, chill, relax. It's a lot different environment than a GDQ. I'm sure, like I haven't been there personally, but I'm sure in person it's completely different. And online, it's also just a really different marathon to kind of experience compared to a GDQ. So definitely check that out. It'll be on their Twitch channel, twitch.tv/RPG Limit Break. So yeah, so check it out all week.
Yeah, the shout out one run, I guess, really quickly. Let's see. I mean, I can go with the super bias and Kingdom Hearts 1 Jimny's Journal 100% is in there. Yeah, well, like that's cool, not just because it's a Kingdom Hearts game. It's a 100% category of a game. Now, it's not like everything in the game. It is specifically 100% of the journal, which is like what the game actually tracks. And I just think that's cool that we get to see a like super long category for a game that like every time a Kingdom Hearts game is in, the community is just like surprised and happy to see a Kingdom Hearts game in any marathon. So to see a full length category of it is really awesome.
Yeah, and I just wanted to point out that aside from the sprint, which we will be having during RPG Limit Break, but aside from that, we will have no other shows. So we'll be hosting RPG Limit Break the entire week. So if you're not sure where to go, just look for the host. It'll be on for pretty much the entire week. So
yeah. Otherwise, rpglimitbreak.com or twitch.tv/rpglimitbreak.
Go to the website, make sure you break it, and blame JHobz.
Yeah.
So we do have one more piece of news left. However, this is a special piece of news, and we're going to need some help with that. So this piece of news is Frame Fatale, which is a all-woman speedrunning marathon that's going to be taking place on the Games Done Quick channel. But we're not the people to talk about this, right? We need the appropriate person to talk about this. So we're gonna go ahead and get our guest SayviTV on, who is not only going to be talking about this, but also helping us break down the runs of Sekiro. So if you just give us a couple minutes, we're going to take a quick break while we get that set up. So stick around, watch the cool speedrun of Sekiro while we get set up. So we'll be right back.
That's zero. Thanks for your. Oh shit, that is 500 bits donation. Thank you, man. Hi, GDD6. You are one of my favorite speedrunners because you go fast. Most other speedrunners I see try to go fast, but they are not too fast, which makes me sad panda. So take this 500 bits and keep going fast. Thank you. I very appreciate that. Thank you, man. Said Panda. Said Panda 怪怪的。
Welcome back, everybody. Do not adjust your headsets. Frozen has lost all his lights. And, probably is going to end up losing power at some point, and we're going to lose him. So you just roll with it. We're just rolling with it. It's fine. But I want to introduce Savvy. Savvy, welcome.
Hi.
You've come at an interesting time. Of course we want to dive into Sekiro, which we will be doing in shortly. But first, we want to talk about Frame Fatale. So, as we just talked about it, Frame Fatale is an all-women speedrunning marathon, which will be taking place on the Games Done Quick channel. So this is an online marathon. It'll be happening from May 12th through the 16th. And of course, this will be, like I said, on our channel, the Games Done Quick channel. So it won't be a 24/7 marathon. Hannah might actually die if we do that. So it's going to be like during the day. There's going to be a bunch of speed runs. And you, of course, are going to be kicking off the marathon with Sekiro. So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about, being a part of this, just about the marathon itself. I don't know. What are your thoughts?
I think it's a pretty cool idea just because I know I think as a female, I think we have like a few more worries and maybe don't always fit into like the gaming sphere as much. I mean, I got the opportunity to actually run an AGDQ a year ago. I forgot what. Yeah, it wasn't too long ago.
One of those.
It kind of blends together.
Yeah, but let's say at least the percentage-wise, there are not that many females that are representative in, let's say, Games Done Quick. It's not like it's our fault. It just happens to be that there are better speedrunners that are male. That's just the case. But this at least gives us a really good opportunity to at least like practice, because speedrunning in front of like, I think I had like how many, like 150,000 people watching during my run.
Right?
Like yeah. that's like a lot of pressure for lots of people. Plus you are in a completely different environment. Like I've done like marathons in my room, that's completely fine. I can mess up. But if you have a different, like, you're not in your seat, you're not at your desk, it's completely different. So I think that will scare off a lot of people. So there's like a good opportunity to actually get into the whole marathon field and maybe find it really interesting and want to actually apply for like GDQ.
Yeah, if I could interject real quick, I do want to just make sure this is like clarified, because we've had some questions about this in the past and stuff. The hotfix shows, stuff on hotfix, are totally selected independently of Games Done Quick stuff. So there's no fear, there's no harm of, in any events that we do, of like, oh, this person was just on Games Done Quick for the GDQ hotfix, for Frame Fatale or for any other, the community showcase, anything like that. There's no worry about that, meaning that they're not going to get into a GDQ because they were on hotfix. If anything, it gives them more chance to practice and come up with a good commentary video for their submissions and stuff like that. So just wanted to make sure that that's out there, because we've had some confusion on that in the past.
Yeah. I mean, speaking as a games committee member who obviously has no involvement in this marathon whatsoever, I will say that, pretty much this can only help the people that speedrun, to be a part of this marathon if they do want to get into a GDQ. This can, this can certainly help their cause. So I think it's cool. You're of course kicking off the event. I don't know. How do you feel about being the opener?
Well, I think it probably happened because I said I was busy because I have work, I stream, and I have university, and it's like, oh, I have to be in the weekend. But I guess it's kind of cool to be the opening. I did pick a very, very, very long route because, like, okay, I want to do all memories, and Ella was doing all memories and G plus. So you pretty much do, so you do both categories to kill every boss pretty much, and that's like 2.5 hours. So I'll be doing that for a marathon, then I'll stop and just do NG because that's 1.5. Because 2.5 is a very long speed run.
Yes.
Is there anything you've seen in the schedule other than, of course, your run that you might be looking forward to?
I'm a bit like, I am not really the person to watch speedruns that I'm not familiar with, like game-wise, because it's hard to understand all of the mechanics if you haven't actually played the game before.
Mhm.
So I've tried running SM64, so I think we have a run there. I'm not entirely sure.
Phantasma's running it.
Yeah, so I'm excited for that.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, Phantasma ended up dropping. I think, that was recently announced that they're switching out Phantasma with somebody else. So I don't think we're going to see SM64, which...
Oh, we are getting word that there is still SM64, actually. So
forgive me. So yes, there's still SM64.
We're being told by by our producer Hannah, who our restreamer, basically everything behind the scenes person, Hannah, who also this whole event is like her baby. So this is all conceived by women and everything. Like it's all women working on it basically, and Hannah also really wanted us to let people know that her favorite part of the marathon is that there is a Barbie block that starts with RoboCop.
Yes.
Which I'm interested to see how that works. What that
works.
So I think that's cool.
That'll be very exciting.
So as we reiterated at the beginning, it is not going to be a 24/7 marathon. It's going to be typically about 10 to 12 hours a day for 5 days. 12, 13, 14, 15, 16. I can math. So it's going to be 5 days. And our opener is going to be Sekiro, as we said, by Sayvi, and our finale is going to be Final Fantasy VI by Essentia, which is pretty cool. So there's some heavy-hitting runs. If you are interested in checking out the schedule for the event, you can go to gamesdonequick.com/hotfix. Not only is it a page about hotfix and some of the events we do, but it also contains the run schedule for Frame Fatale. Sayvi, any final thoughts about Frame Fatale? Anything we had missed or...
No, I think everyone should just go in very open. I know there are. I read through a few Reddit comments, very bad posts, but I think it's just a great opportunity to just like explore different types of marathons. So I'm excited for that.
Awesome. Yeah, I'm super excited for it personally. I think it's gonna be fantastic. I can't wait.
We've said it before on the show. Anything that increases the speedrun events that are going on, that's what we want. We love speedrunning here, and that's what this is doing. That's awesome. I love it.
Just more content.
Yep.
Everyone should be happy.
That's right.
Exactly. Speaking of more content, since we've had Sekiro, great segues. Since we've had Sekiro rolling in the background, I did want to, before we dive into analyzing this run in particular, I wanted to ask you, excuse me, I want to ask you pretty quickly about Twitch Rivals, because there was a Twitch Rivals Sekiro event that was it was like pseudo speedrunning. Speedrunning gave you a huge advantage in it, but
or not.
But yeah, but it wasn't like entirely speedrunning. But I just wanted to get on you. You were actually a participant in that. I wanted to get your thoughts on it. What you if you thought it was fun, you had a good time, stuff like that. How was the event?
It was very stressful. It was an interesting experience, put it that way. But I was told like an evening before that there's a spot free. Do you want to go in? So I pretty much got into it, but I had been running any percent IS, so that means I pretty much was missing out on like all of the bosses that I hadn't practiced or had only been doing in like my first and second playthrough. So that was a bit unfortunate. So I pretty much had my chat backseat me for 6 hours to explain where do I have to go, because you had to pick up idols, you had to like all idols, all bosses and mini bosses, and all of the prosthetics. So that was a lot.
That's a lot of stuff to learn
in
like a week or a couple days, or
Yeah.
You had to grind hard on that, I'm sure.
It was fun, but pretty stressful, especially for like this whole like last minute learning. That was maybe not next time.
Well, that's cool. And I guess with that, we can kind of start, talking a bit about the run, because Sekiro is a game that a lot of people have been enjoying both casually and speedrunning wise. Like I've seen a lot of people take to the speedrun right away. Not too surprising, seeing as it's a From Software game, which generally gets quite a bit of traction right as each new game comes out for it. But I think it's also one of the best From Soft games for speedrunning, in my opinion, just with the like kind of move set that you've got, and just I don't know, there's a lot of different aspects about it. So why don't you tell us a little bit about this game's brief history since it's come out, and specifically maybe a little bit about how QTT has done since this come out, and to let people know we're not looking at a world record today because that would be impossible, because the world record is changing hands like every day. So by the
couple
time
hours maybe.
Yeah, by the time we put together the clips for it, it would already be outdated. So we're looking at something that was a world record when it happened, but and now I think is like maybe technically a world record, and we'll get into that.
Yeah.
But it is QTT6's Immortal Severance PB, I believe. Yeah, go ahead and give us a little history about it.
Yeah, so I pretty much chose this route because I was speedrunning it myself, and I don't really want to explain a route or a category I haven't done myself. So in this game, there are different endings. So you have the Shura ending, and you have the Immortal Severance. So you have two different categories from the start. Then let's say this whole game is based on the Dark Souls, I think Dark Souls 3 engine. So immediately after, like, I think within like a week, there were like 3 different glitches, skips. Put it this way, the game is very glitch heavy. There are lots of skips that have been found very quickly, meaning that I think a few days ago, we actually separated the categories even more because air swim has become such a big thing, which you will showcase later on, but it's pretty broken and it does skip over lots of parts of the game.
Air swimming in general is like a glitch that exists in a lot of different games, and it's a common like name to hear about. And anytime you ever hear that, oh, broken. Gotcha.
Broken.
Gotcha.
It's completely wrecking the game, period.
Please continue.
Yes, we have that. What else? Definitely, we also got some patches today. Well, yesterday for me, today for you guys. So that completely, at least for the consoles, it's going to affect them a lot because they can't down patch. We can also talk about it afterwards, but at least in the past, From Software has pretty much focused on patching all of the PvP aspects of the game, but it's a single player, so they're actually patching things that are relevant for speedrunning, which they didn't used to before, which is kind of interesting. Also a bit sad for us, but for PC it doesn't really matter for any percent because we use down patch, but the console, it's completely changed again, so I think they might just wipe the whole leaderboard because it's kind of bad. But forgot. Well, at least we have air swim, no air swim, and glitchless. So we have quite a few categories to run. We also have all NG memories. So the memories are like the all bosses in a sense, because you can't have all bosses because you have different endings and they give you different bosses you have to fight. So yeah, it's pretty cool because you have so many different categories to run. It's a fairly new game. You can go completely heavy on glitches. You can go completely like neutral. So yeah, it's a really fun game to speedrun.
Now, talk to me kind of from the aspect of, when everybody thinks about games like Sekiro and Dark Souls, they're obviously known as very difficult games, from a casual standpoint, very difficult to complete, to progress. So, taking that into a speedrun, do you find that may make the speedrun harder than other speedruns? Or you just find it's one of those things just like with any other speedrun, you just have to kind of put your time into it in order to get good at it?
I mean, before, at least from my history, I do know Dark Souls 3 and Dark Souls 1 remastered, so I did speedrun those games. And I must say, at least compared to those, the Sekiro speedruns are very, very glitch heavy. They're very precise. We'll see that at least for ape skip later on. I've been practicing that. I'm getting to the point where it's consistent, but if you misstep once, you just fall forever and die. And for boss fights, you just have to grind them. Like, at least for the end boss, I put on cheat engine because that's like the best way to practice. And you just grind the boss fights, you grind the skips over and over. That's how speedrunning works until you perfect it, pretty much.
And we'll get into what cheat engine is a little bit. It sounds really bad in terms of like a competition thing, but it's actually really useful. We'll talk about that in a little bit when it's pops up again in the clips that we're going to be looking at, which is another great segue into why don't we start with some clips.
You ruined the segue by saying
it's a good segue. That's how I do. All right. But yeah, let's go ahead and dive into these because this is a really cool run. We're going to be looking at not only clips from QTT6's Immortal Severance run, but we're also going to be looking at some comparison clips because like we said, this game changes like all the time since it's so fresh. And so there are some things in this run that are like no longer optimal and aren't easy to explain why they're no longer optimal. So we've got some clips from some other runners that we'll be comparing against and stuff like that. And we'll be sure to let you know, although it'll also be pretty obvious. To begin with, though, let's jump into our first one, which is the first kind of boss in the game, Ogre, or I guess not the first boss, but first one that really matters here. And you want to explain a little bit about what's going on here?
Okay, so we currently use Gajin sugar, which pretty much hides your presence to some degree, meaning you don't actually have to kill the few mobs around here, which used to be like the beginning strat. You would kill all 3 mobs and then come and kill him. Now this guy is a bit evil, especially in first playthroughs, because that one grab he does with it's called a perilous attack, I think, with a symbol, and one of them super fast. And it can happen that even like Distortion gets hit by that because you just don't pay attention for 1 second and it just hits you, and then he can also knock you off. So it's like great boss.
The grab is like a large hitbox too. It's nuts.
Oh yeah. But yeah, just not too much to the fight. But you can also backstab, of course, here. Or not backstab, it's called death blow in this game.
Yes, I guess to explain just a couple of the core mechanics for people who haven't seen the game much, in the top left corner of the screen there, you'll see that there are 2 circles. One is currently red and one is gray, because what that means is that you need 2 death blows in order to beat this boss. And the first one you can get for free by using the Gachin sugar and passing by all the mobs and then just approaching it at the right angle, which is something that like is not obvious at all when you're playing the game. Like a lot of mini bosses and even some regular bosses, like it's kind of obvious that you can get a good, like you can find out casually, oh, I can sneak up on them and I can actually get a death blow on them, which is really cool to begin with. Like they'll actually let you take out a huge chunk of a boss fight right away. But this is one that normally you never think that you can actually sneak up and get that. So I thought that's a super cool speedrun strat in its own, just realizing that you can get that death blow.
Yep.
With that though, we can jump into the next one already, which this is not so much a boss, is talking about a little bit of cool movement here. So what is going on in this area?
This is pretty much the first time you encounter the snake. You'll encounter a snake quite often, but here at least what you would normally do, he does jump down here immediately, meaning you have to instantly dodge. But the interesting part about this is actually coming up, because normally you would hide in this hut and then end up stabbing the snake, hopefully, unless you mess up and fall asleep for a few seconds. What he's also doing is you can go faster along like the ridge if you go back and forth on your left joystick. I'm not sure why it happens, but it's like small mechanics, like as well, like for example, if you jump and grapple, you are a bit quicker. So these are like small things that will make you faster in like speedruns.
I love it. Movement tech in a FromSoft game is great to me, because a lot of the times your movement options are pretty limited.
Yeah. I mean, the one cool thing about Sekiro compared to like Dark Souls 3 is a whole like grappling aspect to it, and the whole you can actually jump in this game. So that of course makes you'll see later on all of the skips actually possible.
Yeah, no, I was about to say like like Dark Souls speedrunning is obviously super popular, but it never really like super appealed to me, and I think part of that was the movement. A lot more methodical, but in this game it's just like it just always seems like something is happening because of how fast movement is, and that's what I really love about this game.
That's exactly how I feel. In Dark Souls games, it was the interesting part was boss fights. That was
yeah, definitely.
But the movement, everything in between that was just.
This is pretty much you running and like claw gripping while menuing. It's nothing else to it.
Or like some unique falls and stuff like that, or jumping on the barriers. And
I love even just watching this. Just watching somebody grapple, and it's like, oh, that just looks fast.
or shimmy along the wall. Like that's just I love little pieces of movement tech that look absurd like that, which is great. But probably talked enough about this section. Now we can jump on into Gyobu. So this is going to be one of the things that we're going to look at a couple different strats for. So we're not going to see the whole boss fight here, but what's notable about like what QTT is doing here versus what we're going to look at?
I think one cool thing is because the game is so new is to see how like the speedrunning has evolved over time. There's like a really, really good example just because we'd normally fight him. However, of course, someone, I forgot, I have no idea who, but someone ended up finding a skip, which pretty much skips him completely, as well as like if you are doing all memories, it also skips the demon completely. Like you can do the same concept, and he just, it's kind of funny. I think the first time I tried it, he just like vanished. I'm like, oh, the demon's gone again.
Yeah, I mean, the first, like the way that QTT does it here, we just kind of wanted to show a little bit of the give a sense of like how long it kind of takes just to get one death blow in, which is still like very fast in the grand scheme of things. But now let's take a look at the newer strat, the like skip as it were for Gyobu, and this one's being pulled off by Distortion too. And so some clever platforming here.
I mean, I'm pretty sure QTT also does it because he's also learning air swim, but this was like an easier clip to get. So you can kind of see what he's trying to do. He's pretty much trying to get Gyobu to run off, and then he just like insta dies. A bit sad, but we'll let it loop again in a second.
There it is.
So silly.
I love I made sure to run that clip long enough to see Shinobi execution, like as you're just running away from the battle.
It's very stealthy.
That is the most stealthy thing that you can do, I guess.
Thematically, you can't be mad about any skips like that because it's right in a Shinobi wheelhouse, right? Like ninjas are supposed to not only be really good at combat, but also stealthy and stuff. So
I mean, this is very, very stealthy. So at least for this skip, what you can kind of you saw it twice so far, as you can see it again. You end up jumping up on this post tower, which if you're not fast enough, he will come and destroy it. So that's always very sad. If you're like a second away from jumping and he comes and everything's destroyed. But here we actually use keyboard and mouse just to get like a very straight jump. You have to delay a jump slightly or you will get a stored jump or you just slide off. So, and you want like a nice and long jump in order to and in order to grab onto the ledge. I'm not sure why it's possible, but it's one of these things that just happens.
Yeah.
I'll probably fix it soon. I'm pretty sure.
I can see that. All right, but yeah, so that's kind of one of the big places for QTT to save time. Like you say, he's already working on probably already implemented most of the things that we've
definitely.
This is another big one that I've already kind of talked over the setup of a little bit, but you can give us kind of a rundown of maybe what is being skipped here, and then as it loops around again, we can.
Yeah, so the bull is probably not the most fun boss to fight. I find the bull very annoying because of the fire and everything. So we pretty much just skipped the bull just because someone found the skip again. It's actually it's kind of precise. It took me like the first time at least like 100 times just to like get it going. I jump off a bit more to the right because you can get a bit of you kind of drop slightly and get like this like longer jump after that. But if you have cheat engine, at least we were talking about this before, if you have cheat engine on, you can turn on collision mesh and actually see how the trees have the collision. So you're pretty much jumping off a part of the tree, and it's like a wall jump. And based on that, if you have enough momentum, you will just keep on jumping to the left. And that's how you pretty much skip it.
And that's like you said, I've seen so many people try to just like jump in and do that, and it's just like, no, that's a lot harder than just your average double jump.
It will take quite a while. At least for me, I'm pretty slow at learning skips at the very start. I'm pretty sure Distortion and QTT, they also put lots of hours into like practicing this. One interesting thing that has happened because the patch, they actually patched this, so it doesn't exist in current patch. However, someone has already found a different way of getting over there. So instead of jumping, like you'll see in a second, he jumps off to the left instead and goes around like the bush. I've tried it before, but it's really odd. I didn't try on current patch, so I'm not sure if it actually works on old patch. But you can see he jumps off to the left instead. It's not here, but other side, and I'm not sure if they just rotate the tree or what happened there, but I guess they fixed one and you're back with another. So I'm guessing they have to refix it again.
Can't keep speedrunners down.
They'll find a way.
Well, let's jump into another unique jumping scenario, I guess, here. This is leading into the folding monkeys, which normally you got to do kind of a lot to get here, but what's happening exactly?
So he's jumped over a mesh again. So we jump over lots of mesh. It's pretty much, if you have at least the cheat engine on and you can see all of the collision mesh, you'll see that you actually jump over like a barrier. So you pretty much have to align it correctly. Also, you can't turn too early to the left because there is a kill box. And at least in this clip, he does mess up. So this is what happens if you do mess up. Normally it's pretty clean, and this happens. Sometimes it could be if you are too far away or too close. But yeah, since you have, or at least, yeah, we can show you afterwards again. But yeah, you jump on there, you jump on this invisible tree because you're underneath it. You can also get chain once you get down there, which I do because I'm not always consistent. And you need a very long jump and pretty much align yourself to the rock and also to the island below. And then you're just pretty much holding straight the whole time for this. Or he's adjusting.
I just find it so funny when like random objects like trees just let you can just stand on them, and that's what happens. Because like you said, you're jumping over, you keep using the term mesh, which for people who aren't familiar, it's just the like collision detection by the game basically. And like just being able to land on that tree lets you get high enough to jump over the collision detection, because they thought, whatever, no one's gonna get this high, let's save resources and not make this object unnecessarily tall. And well,
now they're gonna have to fix it.
Yeah. It also, you have to have the entire area loaded below this whole but below.
That's it. So if you actually have G engine on, you can actually see the whole areas are actually already there. Mm-hmm. So that's kind of interesting as well.
Darkman, were you about to jump in with something before?
No, I just love the fact that, I'm going to jump over this mesh. I'm going to fall eternally. Oh, hey, look, I'm back on the top of the building. No problem.
Yeah. Just on a roof. But we'll continue that clip now into the actual fight with the folding monkeys, because there's some interesting stuff to this one as well.
So pretty much because you have Gachine, and if you didn't mess it up, they aren't aware that you actually landed in their hometown. So you can pretty much backstab all of them. You can also backstab. There's the invisible monkeys always behind you. So after killing a second one, normally we rotate backwards and instantly just slash the invisible monkey because he always follows you. And here he's going to be fast enough, go down and firecracker, and that was pretty much the fight. He uses the old strats where he does firecracker, the invisible monkey, but it's a bit slower.
Yeah, I love that you say old strats, and I understand, but just saying old strats in reference to a run that was 4 or 5 days ago,
or like a week or whatever.
Like a week.
In the grand context, this game has been out for a pretty much a month and like a day.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
But yeah, not too much to that one. We can continue on, I guess, rather. And here we're just showing a portion of the game that, I mean, I guess everybody ends up going through this for the most part, unless you do specific endings. But what exactly is being set up here? Because now it looks like he's poisoned.
So pretty much, once you have the puppeteer, after you kill the monkeys, you can puppet a rat who actually pulls up the kite, which you can see that he pretty much swung on that. Now, in this area, it's also got patched, of course. If you I'm not sure why this happens, but he's pretty much trying to kill himself. That's why he also used the contact medicine. It acts like a poison. So you want to pretty much die on a spot where you can stand, because currently the snake is spawning in and you just want to jump off after that. So I'm pretty sure I've tried before where I've accidentally like landed in the wrong spot, and it can be a bit sketchy. So we usually try to land there or anywhere where you can actually stand, and then you want to jump off. And for some reason, because you kind of triggered the snake, he ends up being there after that.
And then you can use them as what I think you call it the Snake Express, right?
Yeah, Snake Express.
Yeah, I made sure to leave enough of that in the clip just to show that you can actually travel via the snake and get swallowed on purpose. What I think is funny about this this whole skip is I actually accidentally did this casually, so I kind of figured they would patch this because I ran into it somehow. I did not do anything with poison whatsoever. I still don't know how it worked. There were a couple of runners like in the chat when I was streaming it and stuff, and they weren't 100% sure why I got it, but they did know about the skip already. And so it's one of those skips where, like, if it happens to you accidentally, you might think, oh, when I go to do my casual speed run of the game afterwards, I did like a semi-blind race with somebody, this will be easy, no problem. I'm just gonna go jump off multiple times until this snake shows up. Not how it happened for me. I probably sat there for about 20 minutes and then gave up because I didn't know anything about the poison. I didn't know how that worked. But yeah, dying in the air seems to be a key portion of it. Maybe I'll need to go like analyze the tapes. Like I'll send it into the Sekiro scientists for what happened with mine. But definitely one of those tricks. Like it's like you were saying, it's not the hardest thing, but it is definitely a little precise. Something you gotta kind of know how it works.
I mean, I'm pretty sure for like every skip, like I'm not gonna get them first. I might get them first try and then like fail the next like 10. Even like easy skips, you have to practice for a while just to get them very consistent.
Right. And yeah, that skips a pretty large portion, but we'll carry on. We're gonna look at another like mini boss fight here. This is Snake Eyes, I believe, or is this?
Oh no,
sorry, my bad. This is the this is a different. So what's happening here? What did I get wrong?
So pretty much this is a very like small mechanic in the sense of compared to quitting out in like a Dark Souls game where you would completely like de-aggro all of the mobs around you. If you quit out in Sekiro, at least, it will pretty much warp you back to whatever aggro at the very start. So we're pretty much using or abusing this mechanic in the game, because we want to go all the way down once we get the idol, because we're not going to kill Ape yet. We want to actually kill Gun Lady and Monk first. So by quitting out here, you get warped back down to the first mob that you pretty much aggroed on. And if you're fast enough, you can do the whole rotation. You also saw that we pretty much aggro this lots of monkeys just to keep the aggro going, because it will time out at some point. And we pretty much also go up there and pick up the pacifying agent, which you'll see afterwards is really helpful if you actually fight Ape and don't do Ape skip.
The other cool thing about that about this mechanic, because like you said, it's totally different from the Dark Souls games and stuff. Like it only works because the quit out puts you back where you grabbed aggro. It also kind of only is extra useful in this case because in most of the Dark Souls games, when you would like sit at a bonfire, you would rest at the bonfire and that would clear aggro from enemies and stuff like that. And in this game, you can like activate them without resting at them, and that still allows them to be travel points, which I think some of the Dark Souls games like
It's like Dark Souls 1,
yeah, but like others that it didn't really work that way. So that it's kind of two things in conjunction working to let you do this, you know, warp backwards basically to just save yourself some backtracking, which I think is always like a cool mechanic. Backtracking is like one of the more annoying things a lot of times in speedrunning.
Yep.
And the next one is finally going to be what I was thinking of before, which is Snake Eyes. So we got a mini boss here that certainly troubled a lot of people. And there's a cool strat to this one, right?
I think he just fights her normally. I would use Ichimonji just because it does stagger her completely. Unfortunately, in the current route, we do not have double Ichimonji because that's like even more safe. Also interesting here, you can see that you can parry the perilous attack that she does. And with the, it's pretty much a grab. So whenever she starts to pull back, that's when you can parry. It's kind of scary at the start because I still die to it now and then. But if you want to get good, you can definitely parry all of the attacks she gives you.
That was the interesting thing to me in watching this is like, it's funny how the game kind of teaches you as you lose over and over and over again to bosses. It actually kind of teaches you to speedrun them. Like if you go through the game again, you're way better at the bosses, and things that might have taken you, 50 tries are suddenly you're getting first or second try and looking pretty good doing it. But parrying this grab is not something I think anybody picks up from just like beating this boss really, because it's so weird. Like you can't parry pretty much any other grab in the game, I think. Like if there are any, it's not many.
Not really. You can definitely interrupt a lot of like these perilous attacks. I hope I'm saying the right word, unless I'm repeating myself incorrectly.
No, perilous attack.
But yeah, you can definitely interrupt a few, not that many. But I mean, the game teaches you that if there's a perilous attack, you have to either dodge or jump. Mm-hmm. So your first instinct will not be to parry it. Well, so I wonder if you tried.
Right, and it's like a rock paper scissors thing, right? Because they tell you to like you dodge grabs, you jump sweeps, and you deflect, or you can dodge the thrusts. And I think most people end up dodging and then getting Mikiri counter and stuff.
Yep.
But you don't deflect grabs. Like that's so weird. I don't know why it works in this one. I just always thought that was cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, that fight can go even faster, but we're going to look at another fight that we're going to compare against older and newer strats. So this is the Corrupted Monk, which already has it's already a very fast fight in the old strats. How exactly does this work?
Okay, so pretty much we have Ash that we've picked up before. Like this, of course, very old strat. We don't actually fight her anymore at this point. Ash pretty much immobilizes her for a few seconds, and the snaps do as well. You can do up to 3, and then she becomes immune to them, so it doesn't do anything anymore. But yeah, you can just watch this how you used to fight her at least. You'll see in a second that you can. They also patched this, of course. No, they didn't actually patch this itself, but you'll see in a second that you can actually. The model is based off of the other monk, where you do have a jump death blow. And of course, this one is the same one, so I guess they just copy pasted it into the game.
And that's a good segue to looking at now this clip from Distortion, where we will see how exactly that works here. So still using the snap seeds and ash and stuff, but in this case, just to manipulate the position of the monk, right?
Yep. So pretty much when you get her far enough back, she will you can actually get the death blow. So pretty much you go all the way to the left. It doesn't trigger her, and she kind of walks in slowly. The snap seed has a very long range, so you do 2 at start just to interrupt her walking forward even more. And then the last snap seed is because the trigger spot for the death blow gets pushed back even closer to you. So that's why you would want to use a snap at the very end. So you can actually, I'm pretty sure that otherwise there's too much distance and you won't actually get, because I've definitely messed up a few times. So it's definitely a kind of some strats are a bit more you have to practice there. I haven't practiced it yet.
And it's all because like this boss is facing a certain direction, like, and you can manipulate that and abuse it. And I think that's just really cool because, I mean, if the boss just turned around to face you, like if the monk just turned around to face you as soon as you use an ash or something, then this would not happen. Like,
She didn't care.
no, she's just like, oh, I'm gonna back up away from something in front of me. So I think that's really cool.
Yep.
Now we got Darkman, do you want to, I mean, we got the next fight rolling, but we got Genichiro, fight that definitely causes a lot of people some bodily harm, basically. But taken down pretty swiftly here, and we'll see maybe even more swiftly in another clip.
Yeah, so this fight isn't like too difficult. All you're doing is pretty much R1 spamming, and you just have to pay attention that sometimes you will have him attack twice, and you have to parry the second attack, or of course make healing counter. But it's a very simple fight. However, I accidentally got Al stuck in the corner at some point. I wasn't really happy about that because that pretty much opened up a very cheese heavy strat that you will see in a second for Genichiro. Yeah, sorry about that. But you pretty much get him stuck in the corner and use R1 spam. So, yep, all skill is out the window.
Just wail on him, let him keep getting stuck. And I think we only show this through like one death blow more or less, but you can just keep it going all the way through the next death blow. You do have to fight the third phase out, I believe, for Genichiro, like normally in both of them, but that's why we're not seeing it in these clips. But like, that's just still so funny to me. Is this cheese like in an ideal scenario faster than using parries and doing it the other way, or is it just kind of like this is a good, consistent, safe, and pretty fast strat?
I mean, I compared the times between at least his timing right now, Distortion's time, and QTT. The problem is I'm pretty sure QTT has, or at least in the IS, because there's a Shura route, in the IS you have a bit more attack power, so I'm not sure how much more, maybe one more. Or I don't think it's that much more. I think it's quite similar, but based on that, I'm not entirely sure if it is faster or if it's exactly the same, but you will get no RNG.
Right. Yeah.
Consistency is real good.
Make it consistent. Well, we can move on to the ape here. Now we're gonna see him get fought, and then maybe not after, but even just the fight is really cool. So.
Oh yeah, this is like one strat that takes a while to learn at the start, just because the timing for the first Ichimonji after the firecrackers is so important. Like you can't do it too early, and then there's like no pause in between the first and second, of course. And because of that, if you get it correctly, he will pretty much get up and be about to do, like start his animation, and then you can just keep staggering him. It's pretty satisfying once you do get this, because he really can't do anything.
And you don't have to worry about any of those like
RNG.
There's a lot of no RNG and moves where he just runs off and wastes time doing what he wants to do.
Yep.
And then the second phase looks a little bit differently though.
Second phase, so we talked about the quit out strats before with the pacifying agent, which you actually use in this fight, just because it reduces the terror amount that you can see here. You can pretty much just it doesn't build up as quickly. Ideally, because of the low HP, I'm not sure for him at least, but you have to either heal or you have to have confetti on so you don't actually insta-die, or you don't die just based on your HP dropping you down to 0. But besides that, the fights are actually really fun. Just have to R1 spam, and then of course you have to parry. Ideally you parry the overhead attack, because he will completely stagger. He'll drop down and completely stagger, which gives you enough time to also attack, so that's pretty nice. So definitely satisfying.
And that used to be followed, I mean, we talk about old strats, like a week old or whatever, but that used to be followed up by a usage of the spear, right? To deal a lot of like posture damage and stuff.
Yep.
I guess, why is that not being used here? Why aren't we seeing that here?
Well, we did use it. We kept on going back and forth. We use it, we not use it. Some runners did, some didn't. The problem is, I don't think we use it anymore is because we can pretty much attack through his AoE attack, or you can attack him while during his AoE. So you don't actually have to back off and waste time, stuff like that. Another thing is the spear does take time to actually get, because you have to kill one of the mobs on the bridge for the key, and then you have to get it. Of course, you can also do the whole quit out thing where you pretty much have the aggro on, you get the prosthetic, and then you quit out again. But it still wastes a lot of time, and I think we got to the point where it doesn't make sense because the fights are pretty fast.
Makes sense. And the ever the like perpetual answer in speedrunning, oh, it's faster. Just do this. Now we're gonna look at how you can actually completely avoid this boss, and we're gonna look at this skip 2 different times. But this first one is just how it looks normally. Things don't look quite right, do they?
I don't know if normal was the right word, was it?
Yeah, normally.
So we are still in the no air swim category, and a skip is allowed because it's probably the most difficult skip in the category if you do want to actually use a skip. Right now, it doesn't seem too difficult. He's just jumping around. However, we'll see later on with the collision mesh on that the spots he's on, it's not a lot. So everything like to the left is just void. Like there are certain spots where he jumps over. As soon as he's jumping, you know that he's jumping over the void. He's jumping over either mesh or he's jumping over a spot where you would just drop completely. I've been practicing this for like 2 days now, so we're getting there. But like for example, like the small, you'll see right here, also a really sharp corner, and some of these jumps, this jump here, for example, you have to jump up without going forward, and then you have to kind of go around the corner really quickly. And there's also a second one over here where you have to jump up and over, but without like pushing forward like much at all. So I've definitely died there quite a lot, just because if you either you don't go around, then you just drop, or if you jump too far, you also drop. So it's like one of these that you have to like grind a lot, because if you do drop, you'll be dropping for like 10 seconds, and there's a lot of time because of that.
Yeah, and you've brought up several times now that there's a thing called the collision mesh, and also Cheat Engine is a very useful tool for speedrunning. Specifically for speedrunning this game. So let's take a look at this. This is going to flash a little bit, folks. Like, sorry about that. But basically, Cheat Engine is a tool that you can use to like find out things about the game's memory, to like actually change things about the game's memory, which often is, as it was initially conceived for, can allow you to cheat in games, but is actually super useful as a practice tool in speedrunning for reasons like this, where you can actually activate the collision detection. Like you can actually just use different colors to show different surfaces in the game and know, okay, the places where it's not a color, I cannot stand. Like that is why some of these jumps look so precise and stuff. Like they're very, they're very they're well thought out before the runner jumps and actually like does them. And it's because of exactly what you're seeing here. A lot of the ways, like just to kind of explain why this happens sometimes, is a lot of games when they're like when they're creating surfaces around walls, they will make sure that the floor goes past the wall. That way there's no chance of a tiny little seam where you run up against the wall and you just fall through the floor, because that would be awful for a casual experience where you run up to a wall and fall through a floor. So they make sure it goes past the wall a lot of the time. And then they just kind of trim it off there. But you don't really have to trim it right at the wall, right? Like you can go past it to be safe. And that can lead to some spots like this where you can just barely have enough room to stand, just because there's that little bit of the floor past the wall. But if you get any more than like an inch away from it, you're going to fall into the void, you're going to be out of bounds, and you're not going to have a good time. So I thought this was like, thank you for including this clip, because I think this is, you don't get to see this a lot of the time. Like there are a lot of a lot of even console games and older games and stuff where people have figured out how, like, where all of these collision spots are, but they never had this kind of tool to do it. They just had to trial and error it over and over and over again. Ratchet and Clank comes to mind for me because there's so many like walls that you can just jump right through and stuff that just come from trial and error. And
I think of Wind Waker HD or Wind Waker in general with barrier skip. The best visualization that we've had with that was a paint, like going into paint and just drawing it on there.
Yeah, so it's really cool to have a game like this where it is built on an engine for a game that is a heavily modded game and you know, has a community, a dedicated community built around like diving into how the game works, so that tools like this already exist for a game as fresh as Sekiro. And being able to get this like view of it, I think is really cool.
It really helps for practicing too, because you're like, okay, why am I falling? And then you have like one of your, or you pretty much, at least here you can see, maybe not there, but sometimes you end up walking on this ledge where only like one of your legs is on solid ground and the other one's pretty much in void. So if you went a bit more to the left, you'd be falling. So it's definitely pretty precise. Like, for example, here, that small jump
around the wall. Yeah.
Yeah.
And obviously, just to make sure nobody worries about it, like, cheat engine is not allowed during runs. Like,
yeah, it's just for practice.
Solely practice, yeah.
It would be very obvious if somebody was using cheat engine in a run. Like, obviously, you can see the meshes here. I think somebody would catch that, you know, you're using cheat engine in your run. So you don't have to worry.
It's like a normal run to me.
Yeah. You don't have to worry about people cheating with cheat engine.
Yeah. It's a really good practice tool. Also a good tool for practicing bosses and stuff, because you can just start back at the beginning of a certain phase or right at the beginning of the boss. Don't have to spend time dying to it or, you know, reloading a save or anything like that. So
yeah, so I use it quite often for like all of my, at this point, all of my boss fights. If I really want to, if I have issues with like Ishii and Emma, I turn on pretty much 0 damage for me, for the boss, and 0 posture damage as well. And then you can just like, it's the best way to learn. It's just, you just grind this boss fight for, let's say, 10 minutes straight, whereas normally you have to like kill her, restart, and keep going. It wastes a lot of time of where you could just be grinding the whole time.
Yeah, that's actually a really good point, is being able to make yourself invulnerable, so that you can read and learn and memorize patterns and stuff in a game.
Because that's really important to know all of the boss patterns.
All right, so with that, we'll jump on now. We have got the owl fight here, which is pretty unique because you don't really lock on a lot in this fight, which is not really done anywhere else. So why is that?
So I think after, like, I think most of the runners, at least for me, because Ishii was such an issue, you just grind him for like hours. So at this point, like, I'm pretty sure all of us know how to fight him really well. So Owl Fight was like the next big boss. It's really annoying because RNG has like a very, it's not like, even now he's still a bit annoying to fight. So we had a few strats going through that, I forgot what, but there was like one where we had to attack once and parry, attack once and parry, or maybe it was attack twice, like I forgot, but it was a very like, it was very monotone, and I usually spaced out and messed up. Now, KDT actually found a different strat again. So these are actually both his strats. So pretty much if you lock off, he knows that if you attack his left side, you can stagger him, but you won't trigger his parry. So you can see he pretty much goes behind and attacks his left side. You can do one, at least, and it's actually kind of interesting as well to go one further and say, okay, you attack him 1, 2, 3 times. 4 and 5 is directed towards him. Just so by the attack 5, he'll be parrying again and give you a sweep instead of like backstepping, because that will waste time and he'll do a shuriken and you have to dodge it again.
Okay.
And from a difficulty standpoint, you know, does not being able to lock on to the boss, does that make it maybe one of the more harder bosses in the run, or like how much more difficult is it?
I think it just depends on the player's ability to like. I have some issues sometimes with like lock off. I'm not super used to it. Like I definitely had issues on DS3 where you were supposed to do Princess lock off. I really had issues with that. Here is actually not too bad. I've gotten to a point where I can do it pretty consistently. But yeah, it's all about like readjusting your camera while attacking at the same time. So you get used to it, but it's definitely something you have to practice.
Yeah, often the camera is just kind of not something you have to worry about too much in the boss fights when you're just like locking on and stuff. And camera work is always something that is actually a larger part of speedrunning than most people think about, especially in games that have a lot of movement tech or a lot of platforming based skips, stuff like that. Like the bowl skip, you want to make sure you lined up right so you can see where you're going and stuff. And like you were saying with Gyobu skip, like you all even switch to mouse and keyboard so you can like move straight forward. So it's kind of cool that like you end up having to worry about the camera a little bit in a boss fight. I just think that's neat. But we'll move on to our refight with the monk, this time like the monk proper. And this is where you can kind of see where the inspiration came for those newer monk strats.
So this is also one thing I got patched again.
Oh, really?
I still got they're gonna patch everything. I maybe not swim skip. That's gonna be lots of work to actually patch, but I'm pretty sure they're gonna patch everything else. But
it's
at
weird,
least
this one almost seemed intentional,
I know,
right?
I know.
Like that you could do an aerial death blow because you can't do that on most bosses. It's weird.
But I'm pretty sure. I think I read in the Discord that definitely the first blow, first jump death blow got patched because it was not intended. So pretty much what you do is you jump to, at least for them, all of the bigger runners, they somehow always get that they just go to jump onto a second branch, and from there on you can get a death blow. I've tried that for some reason. I'm doing something wrong. I've tried numerous times, but I usually, you can also, if you are having issues, just jump up to the third branch. Then you'll definitely get a death blow.
Okay, so here's the second. You're saying you can just go up to the third, like I think what we see in the second phase, right? So all right, neat. So with them patching, I guess like right now, like you said, down patching is allowed.
Just down patch, yeah. It's any percent. It's gonna be an issue once we have, or if we have a DLC at some point, hopefully, because then you can't down patch anymore.
Oh man, I hope there's a DLC for this game.
I hope so too.
I love this game. All right, yeah, not too much to it, but I do think it's cool that you get strats for other bosses based on the loot.
Yeah,
just isn't it? But now we're into a very popular or unpopular fight, depending on who you ask.
It's probably my favorite fight. I've been fighting HD and Ashina, so the Sura ending one. I'm like, this is boring. This guy is so much cooler. But yeah, phase one, there's not too much to it. That's just one of the fights that you just have to know the attack patterns correctly. I definitely, for this fight, I abuse Ichimonji a lot because it does stagger the boss. So if you know when to use, like here, for example, you can just Ichimonji while he's actually also Ichimonjiing. So it's pretty nice because it also turns him around. This actually, so in phase 2 or 2.2, phase 3, whichever you want to call it, you can actually, if you're aggressive enough, you'll see in a second, you can completely skip the spear phase, which they also patched, I think.
Jeez.
I want to know how many times you said the word "it's been patched."
Which as many clips as we've had, I think.
We review these ahead of time and stuff. Obviously, we got to put the clips together, and this all happened like since the last time we reviewed it. So that's
it happened since yesterday.
Sunday.
Sunday.
Oh yeah.
Sunday for us. Yeah, Savvy, you're over in Germany, right?
Yeah, I'm lost. Time zones are confusing me.
Thank you for staying up late to help us out with this.
So it's basically been 48 hours since we've seen this, and that much has happened since.
Yeah, I think what happened, we had a patch, a lot of things got patched, but Distortion got a new record again with his air. Yeah, we'll see the air swim in a second, I think, but he found a third air swim. I'm like, the game's just broken.
One thing I did want to ask about this fight is that we saw that QTT like backed up and let Ishin pull the spear out for the fourth phase, the final phase.
Yep.
Is that one of those things where like you have to at some point let him pull the spear out, or is it just that makes that phase faster for some reason? What happens there?
You could just continue, but then you'll have a fifth phase.
Oh geez.
So he won't have any life anymore, but he will pull a spear for one more phase. So if you want extra fifth phase, go ahead.
You just didn't get enough of the fight. Just like, now 4 phases, that's not enough for me. I want a 5th phase.
Yep.
That's great. Well, real quickly, we'll show the Ichimonji strat that you were talking about, like how you can use that to great effect in this fight.
Yeah, so he pretty much does exactly what I do. Maybe he copied me, but I have no idea. But yeah, so you can pretty much there parry, jump, Ichimonji. I love it because, especially if you want the spear skip, you have to. So it pretty much gets triggered if you aren't aggressive enough, and he just has time to pull out the spear, or if he doesn't see you anymore. So let's say you jump on him. I've had two that I pretty much jumped on his head, and it just took too long to fall or did something stupid, and he just pulled a spear because you weren't in his view. But yeah, so you would want to always like double Ichimonji and then expect a parry. He will always attack you after that. So you would Ichimonji, double Ichimonji, and parry. If you try to learn strats, don't double Ichimonji in phase and spear phase, because just do a single one, because he will attack immediately after your second one. So that's one thing to not do.
It's cool to see that there's a skill that you can acquire that lets you use combat arts in the air, and it's cool to see that being used to kind of like partially cut out the startup animation of Ichimonji. Yep. I think that's super neat. Now so that's the final boss of the Immortal Severance route, and we're going to look at one more thing though, past this, another distortion clip. This is the air swimming that we were talking about. There's swim skip, like this is basically what we're talking about. So we're going to roll from where the ape skip happens. So if you remember, you do the ape skip, you stay out of bounds, you grab the flower. So now we're going to go from there. This is how you would continue in a category that allows air swimming. And we're kind of just using this just to show everybody what it looks like. It is not used in the no air swim category, obviously. There's also something funny that happens in this one that you'll see a couple times. I think Darkman and Frozen haven't seen this. So.
Oh.
I'm waiting for them to see, like, you'll know what happens that's funny when I talk about it. But so what exactly does happen here? Is it just kind of jumping in the right spot, or?
I haven't done it myself. I've watched Distortion like practice it quite a lot. I think you're pretty much going into like a water area, which lets you, because you can swim in the water, you can just continue on, because I guess the game doesn't think you're supposed to be there, so you just going through everything at this point. Yeah. You can pretty much skip a lot.
For it. So he triggered the boss fight. All right.
Yep.
So the boss can still throw stuff at you. Which I think is just
I like that.
And in fact, I just think that's so funny. Like actually getting killed while swimming in air out of bounds.
Yep.
Because an ape threw poo at you. Like that's just
like even here, for example, I think he was practicing this quite a lot, because you have to find a certain spot where you quit out. I'm not entirely sure. I don't think I'll ever be running air swimming, because it's I do prefer like actually fighting bosses and experiencing the game a bit unbroken. Like I'll do ape skip just because I do use lots of skips, but this is a bit too far, too broken. Especially
that's the beauty of categories, right?
Yeah.
And of just being able to run whatever you want.
Yeah. Especially because I think he even found a skip. The latest skip he found was air swimming from, I think it's up air swim up to Emma and Ishin for like the last fight. So that also happens really. So I think he air swim like 3 times. Oh, I think twice, but here he's continue on. So it's kind of 3 times. If you want to at some point look at the monkey skip, I don't think or the monkey fight. you pretty much fight the monkeys while swimming, so it looks really dorky.
Well, we'll leave that as like research homework for the viewers, because I don't think we quite have a clip of that one. But
No.
Yeah, so that is the run. Like, that is Sekiro, Immortal Severance, No Air Swim, and then obviously just showcasing it at the end there. Thank you very much for going over that, Savvy. That was that was a blast. Super cool to look at a new game. Like, it's the first time we've looked at something this new. We looked at, like, what I guess Guacamelee 2 before was probably the newest thing that we had looked at otherwise, but this game's a month old. It's only going to keep going from here.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you, Savvy, like, for a game that's like Sekiro, which is like not only new, but it has a ton of people, like, kind of like, whether they're running the game, whether they're, coming up with strats. For somebody who runs the game, how does it feel like, you're practicing something, or like, you're learning things, and then like all of a sudden, like the next day, like somebody's like, yeah, I got a new skip, or I got a new strat for that, so you got to relearn everything. Like, how does that is that make the game learning it more difficult? Like, how does that like kind of translate to speedrunning the game?
I think because I've already had like some experience in like Souls games, it wasn't like that difficult. But definitely, like, the worst part was because I ran any percent IS at the TwitchCon ESA, and I remember there's like I had streamed before, like the night, like a few days before that, and then the day after. So when I was actually traveling on Friday, they were like, "Oh yeah, do you know there's this skip?" and then on the day of like my run, they're like, "Oh yeah, and now there's ape skip too." I'm like, "Are you kidding me?" So yeah, that's probably the point where I'm like, okay, there are just too many skips. At least ape skip wasn't used for a very long time, but I think it was a different monkey skip or something. I forgot what happened exactly. But yeah, I guess sometimes, like, if there's like a small change, be like, okay, now you skip Gyobu. I don't think it's like a big issue, because maybe you spent a lot of time like learning the boss fight, and now suddenly you don't have to anymore. But I don't think it's a bad thing. It's because, for example, I'm going to be using the demon skip for all memories, and I have no reason to actually learn the boss fight anymore. It's kind of sad. I'm never going to know the boss fight correctly at this point.
It takes me back to like when Super Mario Odyssey was coming out, because I was doing runs in that like first couple weeks of it, and it would be like that one had so many people running it, and it was about an hour long. So you'd finish a run, and then you'd say, all right, what's the new Metro Kingdom route? now that I've finished a run. And usually it would have changed. Like, for the first several days, it was actually different every single time you did a run, which is like you're saying, they can be frustrating at times, but also neat at times. So.
Especially because like the people who like Distortion, like they will stream for like 10 hours, and you're just like, and then they practice offline too, most likely, and I'm like, how am I supposed to catch up with that? So I think at this point it's kind of slowly like leveled out. Like, the things you learn or the new things that happen aren't like a complete reroute. I think that's the worst part. Like, having something like, okay, there's a new skip here, but doesn't like completely change the whole route you have to go, that's okay. But as soon as you have to completely relearn what to level up, where to go, and that's when it gets a bit annoying, for sure.
Level up ones are like the worst and stuff, like RPG menuing too, like, because this is similar in some regards to like, okay, you got to menu and at these times and use these, level up these things. And man, with RPGs, that was always the worst. What you're saying, this, all right, even if I go to all the same places in the same order, I need to relearn how to do all of these menus.
Yep. When you have to break out the notes again, that way you can remember things, that's when it becomes a problem.
Yeah.
Well, I think we have talked enough about Sekiro for now. No, never too much. We could always constantly keep talking about it.
We'll be back in like 2 months, be like, oh, everything's different.
Yeah.
This isn't even the same game.
But thanks again, Savvy, for joining us and talking to us about both Sekiro and Frame Fatale. And we wish you luck on your run of Sekiro and that, and your practice leading up to it and all that. But yeah, thanks again. I guess just real quick, where can people watch and find you and stuff like that?
Well, thanks for inviting me. That was fun, even though it's like almost 4 a.m.
Thank you so much.
But yeah, it's SayviTV. So yeah, that's where you can find me. Mostly EU time, but on week because I do have university and I work as well. So, but on the weekends I usually do stream like 10 hours, and then I come to work and be like, "What did you do over Easter?" And I'm like, I give them the look, and they're like, "Oh, you probably gave them the whole weekend." They know.
All right, so if you want to see the new cheese strats as they're being found and developed, go follow Savvy.
And also make sure to check out Distortion 2 and QTT6, who we displayed their runs today.
And
both great runners.
Tishel, I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm so sorry, but Tischel, another great runner. So,
yeah.
Thank you. And we're going to go to a break here for just a couple minutes, folks, run some ads and stuff like that, and say a goodbye to Savvy. So thank you once again, and we will see you all very soon.
Welcome back, everybody, to the sprint. So we're going to go ahead. We have a couple more segments to kind of do and wrap up the show. And we're going to go ahead and start off with one of my favorite segments. I think it's everybody's favorite segment. We're talking about none other than Frozen's Freezer. Frozen, what you got out of the old vault for us today?
So today I have Snapshot. It's a puzzle platformer style game with some really cool mechanics. So in this clip, we're going to be seeing basically what you do is you take a snapshot of the current environment, and then you can then move that. So it allows a lot of really cool movement. In this case, in this one, basically taking the boxes to allow you to jump up, and then you can propel yourself into the actual goal. Even those small little movement optimizations where you can use the given momentum of an object like that to save. I mean, it has to be less than half a second, but you can constantly do that throughout a lot of the runs. There's a lot of no, he missed it there, but there's a lot of cases of that. In this segment, I believe that he basically he goes real fast. No, that wasn't that one. I put these clips together like 3 weeks ago now, so I'm trying to remember them now. Probably should have looked at them.
I just love taking these blocks that are like supposed to fall straight down and rotating them so they push you forward. Like that's super neat. I love that. Neat game. I think this definitely flew by most people's radars.
Yeah, it's one of those styles of game. This is the cool one where you're basically using these bouncy springs in order to push objects around rather than actually moving the objects, because it's slightly faster to find those springs. Yeah, it's just the movement tech in this game is just, it looks like it's fun. It's the reason why I personally fell in love with Tesla Grad when I was running that a lot. Just little tiny optimizations and movements. That's my favorite thing in speedruns in general. This one's kind of interesting because he needs to grab the box at the right time with enough momentum. So at the bottom of that snapshot, it has maximum momentum, which will allow it, once he places it, it will rocket him across. So
that's really cool.
I think that's really cool. And yeah, that's the freezer.
That's
the freezer.
Very neat.
Cool.
Yeah, thanks for showing us that one. It's been a while since we had freezer because we had an episode for a while and stuff.
Yeah,
I love learning about new speed games.
Yeah. The game was also run at SGDQ before, believe it or not. SGDQ 2016 by Nightmare. So that was a really cool run. I did watch that, so I am familiar with this freezer. So you should definitely check it out. It was a cool run.
That's one of the things that I love about even just doing the freezer is that I basically I watch through a whole bunch of runs, usually on like 2x speed and skip through a bunch of it. But I just basically go through speedrun.com and I'm like, oh, that sounds like it could be interesting. And then I find a game. That's how I found most of the games, honestly, except for the Author Blues ones.
That's also, by the way, that is a great recipe for fun blind races. I've done a bunch of blind races in the past, and one of the best things, like one of the ways that I find games for blind racing is speedrun.com, game, like most active runners, and invert it. Find something with the least number of active runners, because it means that you have probably never seen it before, and you can generally pretty quickly judge, like, okay, is this broken so much that my blind race is going to be like 6 hours or something when the run's 20 minutes, or is it probably going to be like a little over an hour when the run's 20 minutes? Like, that's kind of, those I think are the best kinds of ones for blind racing.
Makes sense.
All right, so moving on from Frozen's Freezer is our last segment of the show, and that is the checkpoint. So with the checkpoint, we kind of just like to, you know, kind of talk with the host, talk with each of us, and say like what's going on, you know, whether it's speedrunner related or not. So
check in.
Yeah, check it. Called the checkpoint. So we'll go ahead and start with Frozen. Frozen, what's up with you?
So the most important thing that I have is the fact that I got a new putt saves the zoo not world record. Oh god, no, that's way too good.
Whoa.
Oh, that's another like 2 seconds away. But
eternity.
I brought it down to a 40.5, as in 40 seconds and 40 and a half seconds. About a second of time save overall, which I'm pretty happy about. I think the world record right now is like a 38 second, which is it's super optimized. I consider myself to be decent at the game and can't touch that.
The world needs to know, Frozen. How are you going to save those 2 seconds?
Robotic arms. That's the only thing.
Hear me out. Scroll wheel.
I've been putting together the tablet run, so it's on the tablet, and I'm thinking that maybe I could save some time around there. But from what I'm told, it's actually like the mechanic. It doesn't work as well as I thought it would. Sad, but we're working on it.
What I heard from that you just said is that somebody has already looked into that.
Oh yeah, there was one of the guys who's pretty well known in putt and humongous entertainment games. So he actually just recently ran all of the humongous entertainment games without using the escape key, so no skipping cutscenes or anything. It was like a 12-hour run or something like that. Mind you, I've done that category poorly at about 35 minutes using the escape key. So. And I guess the second, lower priority item is that massive hailstorm last week that got me caught at work and totaled my car and canceled the show.
Yeah,
so that was good.
So if you were wondering what was happening, so were we for a little while. We were just like, Frozen, are you okay? Is he okay? And he was so busy, wrapped up in understandably so, very busy, wrapped up in the fact that your car got totaled. Like, oh my gosh, I can't even imagine.
I didn't respond until like the next morning.
Do not blame you at all for. We knew that something had to have happened with the hail. It was like, whew, that's so rough. Glad you got insurance.
So Hobbs, what do you got going on?
I mean, I guess I got a game into GDQ or something. I don't know. Like that's that actually, I haven't been working on that yet. Like, surprisingly, I will be very soon. I'm sure that will take over my life for a while. But yeah, no, it's just been a hectic few weeks. I'm going to be moving pretty soon. So been looking for a new place and getting things prepared for the move, getting flights and stuff. And I'm really excited for, that big movie that's coming out in a couple days. Just small thing that nobody else is really looking forward to. And so I'm just excited for that. But in terms of other speedrunning stuff, like RPG Limit Break, with that coming up, there's a lot of just finalizing work on the website I've been doing, as well as just helping out in discussions around, tech and around interviews and stuff like that. Like, I literally had an interview meeting like an hour before the show to kind of tell you a little bit about how busy that kind of stuff has been, as well as we've been ramping up with SGDQ planning and stuff. So getting to plan out all of the interview stuff for that as well. A lot of buying flights and a lot of less nights with not a ton of sleep and not as much speed running myself. Although what I have been enjoying is honestly Sekiro, like we were saying before, like I wasn't just, blowing smoke or anything. I love that game, and from the moment I like started playing it, I was just like, oh, this is going to be a fun like speed run. Even if I'm the kind of person where I oftentimes don't have enough time to really dive heavily into getting super good at a game at a speed run, or getting like learning all of the strats and stuff. So I love finding games that I can do that in when I do have time, but also games that I can just hit start, hit new game, and go to the end and just work my way through it and have a blast doing it. Because some games are like not super fun to do that in, because you don't know, oh, what route should I be doing, and like what, where, how, what, like what's the big boss strats and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Sekiro is a game that teaches you how to be good at it so well that your second playthrough can be like so much faster. Like it'd just be a couple hours or whatever. So I've been having a lot of fun with just messing around with stuff, and I want to do more casual runs of just like, all right, let's boot it up, hit start, and go to the end, and hopefully, ideally race somebody else who doesn't know that much about it doing the same thing. And sometimes that can be a really good gateway into properly learning the speedrun for the game and getting better at it. Like that's what happened for me with Crash Bandicoot, with Crash 3 Insane Trilogy. Like, and now I'm going to be running it at GDQ again. Like that was a game that I started by just racing people in all the time without knowing anything. And eventually you get better and better at that. And as you get better of just casually doing it, you start wondering, okay, well, what are some things that real speedrunners do for this thing? And you start implementing strats little by little. And I just always think it's a very low barrier way to get into speedrunning as a whole, but also just getting into speedrunning a game is just, hey, turn it on, hit new game and start your timer.
Yep.
Go until you're done. And you don't need to know anything other than just having played the game before. So that's what Sekiro.
Cool. Sekiro.
As for me, well, it was a few weeks ago, but I did attend PAX East, which is, happens annually in Boston. It's pretty cool going to PAX. You get to basically play a bunch of games, hang out with friends. It's always a good combination. Me in particular, I like to go there and check out what's upcoming and kind of like see what's on my radar. Because like, okay, now that I've kind of been speedrunning for a while, when I like look at new games, when I'm like kind of seeing whether it's a game I want to play, my speedrunning instincts just naturally come out. Like automatically when I like play a new game, I'm like, okay, can this be speedrun? How can we speedrun this? Can I do this faster? Like that's I always just try to do something fast. That's that's me. So naturally, when I play games at PAX, I try to see, okay, what looks like it's going to be a good speedrun. So, out of all the games I played, there was 3 in particular that stood out to me that I wanted to kind of highlight for people. So maybe you could either get it when it's out or get it since it's already out, because one of them is already out. So the first one is Katana Zero, which is a really neat 2D platformer with a slowdown mechanic. So like think like Mega Man 11, if you're familiar with the gear speed up system. It's kind of like that, in that like it helps you like kind of get through sections that normally would be, a little bit more difficult to get through. Not that you have to, but it certainly makes things a lot easier to play through the sections. So yeah, it's a really cool 2D platformer, kind of like stealthy, like I guess if you will, in the sense that like you're trying to like it's like you have a very limited HP pool in the sense that like one hit you're dead. So the idea is to not just like brute force your way through everything, but kind of like stealthily like take care of everything. Has a really wonky dialogue system, but I think from what I understand from the speedrun perspective, like you can kind of like bypass the annoyances of it. So that game just came out last week as a Devolver Digital published game. So definitely check that out.
I've been hearing a lot of good things about that game from people, and I love stealth games, so I'm gonna have to check it out for sure.
And I love Devolver Digital in general. All of their games are great.
Perfect combination. So that's cool. The second one is Cyber Shadow, which is the newest game that is coming out from Yacht Club Games. So for those who are familiar with Shovel Knight, that is a Yacht Club. That's their original game that they released. So Cyber Shadow is the next one. So this is really cool. It's a Ninja Gaiden-like game with the movement and pacing of it. Like when I'm looking at like platformers, typically I usually play platformers. Like that's what I'm looking at playing, because like I don't really like playing a whole lot of other games from a speedrun standpoint. But yeah, so this is obviously a platformer with just really great pacing. Like pacing is super important to me. If it's a slow paced game, I'm just not really digging it, because like you can't really do much with that. But like this awesome pace, it's got good difficulty from what I can tell. And yeah, this I love Ninja Gaiden style mechanics. So this game looks really good. It is on my radar. From what I understand, it should be releasing later this year, like fallish kind of thing. So I would definitely check that out. I think it's going to be a really good speedrun. I really think so, especially because Yacht Club Games, you know, they literally have a speedrunner on their team. So like they obviously like get speedrunning. So I expect that to be good.
I believe they are the ones publishing it.
Yes, they are publishing it.
Not developing.
The original developers or anything, but that is still they make great relationships with studios and stuff.
Yep. So the final one, which is very under the radar game, I never knew existed. I doubt anyone knew existed really prior to PAX. This game's called Rocket Boots Mania. So this is a platformer. It's very parkour like. I think a little bit like Mirror's Edge. Not quite the same, because it's not like that sort of mission-based thing. Instead, it's like kind of level-based. Like you're in a level, you want to get from point A to point B as fast as possible. The movement is fantastic in this game. It's like it has a little bit of a Quake style of movement to it, in the sense that like you can gain speed by like using the proper movement options that are presented in front of you, and you want to maintain that momentum so that way you go faster. So at a basic premise, it's simply like avoid bad and get to the end. And it's really cool how you can do that. There's so many different options to that. And this was just a game that just happened to like stumble past. And I saw people play. And I was like, wow, this looks absolutely amazing. Not only does it look amazing, but it plays amazing. And I think the greatest selling point for this game was the developer happened to be there, and he played the game for me. And I thought it was fun when I was playing it. And then I saw him play it. I was like, oh my goodness, this game is far more fun than I could ever imagine. So
as you were saying that, I pulled up the video on Steam, and boy, yeah, that looks like it's a blast. I can only imagine getting good at this and just being, I could see that.
Yeah. That reminds me of my interaction with Celeste, because I played that at PAX one year, and then Kevin from Power Up Audio worked on that game. Came over, and I had known Kevin. I didn't know the other devs of Celeste yet. And he was like, oh, this guy's a speedrunner. Show him some of the stuff you found. And so Matt then like jumped. It was like, okay, well, you can do this, and this. And he didn't even show me like the fast stuff, like the super fast stuff, because they were keeping all that stuff hidden. They wanted speedrunners to find that out themselves, or from playing the game, because the game teaches you a lot. But even just getting to see him play through it with these minor things of speed tech that he was showing me, that I had that same experience you're talking about, where I was just like, oh, I was already having a lot of fun. Yeah. Now I'm buying 100%. Like now I'm super interested. Like that was super cool.
Yeah. So this game is literally built for speedrunning, so you should definitely check it out. It isn't currently in early access, and I know they're going to be doing a PC beta very soon. So yeah, check it out. It's on Steam. I think it's like $8 for early access. I don't remember the exact price, but
what's the name again?
Rocket Boots Mania. So Rocket Boots is one word, and then Mania. Yeah. So that is definitely. I am very much looking forward to that game. I imagine I'm gonna put this on GDQ at some point.
Well, cool. I think anybody have anything else that's been going on for them? Steph? No? Well, I think with that, that's basically going to be our show, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Want to remind people that the next show will be happening during RPG Limit Break.
Yep.
So I actually won't be here because I'll be at RPG Limit Break. So I want to say, like, please watch RPG Limit Break, then take a quick break to watch our show, and then and then continue watching RPG Limit Break. Support if you can. GDQ has always been like great partners with RPG Limit Break and stuff, and it's super awesome cause and all that. Also, just to let you guys know, if you didn't know that, like, the GDQ hotfix, one of the big ways that we are able to do shows like this and Frame Fatale and all the other GDQ shows, the Acoustic Grande Invitational, and there's the Community Spotlight and Showcase and all that. Mm-hmm. One of the ways that we're able to do this is because a lot of you are subscribers to the channel and stuff. So if you know, like it's the classic PBS. Like we're able to do this because we're supported by viewers like you, but we really are. And so, like one of the biggest ways that you can help support is honestly just share the show, share any of the shows that you enjoy, share it on YouTube, on Twitch, whatever. But also, if you have, you know, your free Twitch Prime sub, or you are, you know, you're just able to subscribe, we sincerely appreciate it, and it allows us to keep making shows like this and keep improving them and make them better and better and better. So thank you all so much for your support already, as even anybody who's just watching. Like we just love doing it for people to watch. And if you have the opportunity, we absolutely love if you can subscribe. But I think that's just about it. So they'll see you next week, or I mean, not next week, 2 weeks from now. They'll see you next episode is what I meant to say. And with that, we will say adieu. Bye.